motherfucker wants to race.
Race? That's ridiculous.
All right, come on. Let's go. Let's go.
Put your window down!
You want something?
He's probably drunk.
You're going the wrong way!
What?
You're going the wrong way!
He says we're going the wrong way.
Oh, he's drunk. How would he know where we're going?
Yeah, how would he know? Thank you. Thanks a lot. Terrific.
Thank you. What a moron.
On my knees. Now I'm begging you, please. But I won't stay begging long, 'cause begging's a disease. Tell me you don't love me now, now that you're crying and you're feeling all alone. Baby, oh baby, come on home. Well, I'm so sick and tired of this misery.
Oh, hello and greetings once again, Popheads. Welcome to another special remix episode of the TomCast POPCast. My name is Tom. I'm coming to you once again from the friendly confines of a deconstructing Tom Cave, where many of the accoutrements that normally surround me in this abode are in boxes or have been relocated to a secondary site. So, yeah, we are still in the midst of it. We are in the thick of relocating, and yeah, that's not a great way to spend the holiday season. But what is a great way to spend the holiday season is with good friends and good movies. So that's what we're here to talk about as we remix I think a really nice episode from last holiday season. Let me get to the particulars because, again, as I said, my name is Tom. This is the TomCast POPCast, and I want to thank you all so much for listening to this quality independent pop culture podcast. Please make sure you're following us on social media, TomCast POPCast on Twitter and Instagram. Email the show at tomcastpopcast@gmail.com. gmail.com. And remember to like, subscribe, and share the show with everybody. Because we truly, truly appreciate it. We're on all your favorite podcasting platforms. And please check us out. And if you get a chance, 5-star reviews are an insanely helpful way to support the show without having to do a single solitary thing other than, at least like financially speaking. But if you are inclined to support the show financially, we have the official members of Pophead Nation who have access to the amazing bonus content. You can sign up at patreon.com/TomCast POPCast. Join the nation and gain access to the sweet bonus content. Thank you to our current Patreons, and happy Thanksgiving to our current Patreons. The Aspen Hill Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff Nail, co-hosting The Ring and Ear. Check that show out. The Evil Circle, thank you, Evil Circle. Squidmaster General Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil Mark Wagemer, our very own Joker, Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pride Brewing Company, right here in San Diego and coming to Baltimore, Maryland. The Beer Hop Brigadier General, Jesus Beer Hops, and of course, the Silent Assassin, he who shall not be named. Well, as I mentioned before, if you're a long-time listener of the show, you know what's going on. If you're new, welcome aboard. I hope you're digging the show. What we're doing right now is we're remixing an episode, a prior episode of the show, because this is one of those occasions where, like Dr. Ian Malcolm says, life finds a way. Well, life has found a way to to knock this podcast off the rails, if you will. I am currently in the midst of moving / relocating / upheaving my life from the friendly confines of the Tom Cave to a new location. And that's going okay so far. But it's trying, it's stressful, and it is cut into podcasting time severely. So what we're doing is we're representing for this Thanksgiving season two of our, in my opinion, greatest hits for the holiday season, for Thanksgiving. Our last week we did a remix on our amazing interview with Ethan Embry about Dutch and so many other aspects of his career. Fantastic episode. Please check it out if you haven't already. A lot of fun to go revisit that one. And then today, you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, starring Steve Martin and John Candy. One of my all-time favorite holiday comedies. Written and directed by John Hughes, and it's just a holiday classic. It's hard to go wrong with this one, in my opinion. I'm curious though, if you have younger members of your family who have watched this with you, do they find this movie to be dated? Do they find it to be antiquated in a way? Because obviously travel has changed a lot since this was filmed in the late 80s. And obviously, and we also have more things to distract us and make it so that we can find other alternative means of getting around. So, keep that in mind. It is of its time. It is of its period. But I love this movie. I think the comedy is great. Steve Martin and John Candy at the height of their comedic talents. And if you know Steve Martin, Steve Martin's been at the height of his comedic talents for a long, long time. The man is a genius and rarely misses. Like, that's a fact. And John Candy, obviously, he's been passed away now for a long time, not with us. But again, at the height of his comedic chops, nailing it in this one. And I'm joined by my brother Mark because it is Thanksgiving, so why not make it a family affair as we discuss Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from, I forgot what year it was. You'll hear it in a minute as I kind of get into the movie. Oh, that's not good at all. I think it's from '87. Holy smokes! I really got to get my shit together. I have that moving brain right now. My moving brain is all focused on packing things and relocating things and playing Tetris in my car to make sure as many boxes fit in there as humanly possible. So please excuse me for lacking on some of the details. But again, before we get into the movie, I do want to mention how much I hope everyone has a safe and festive holiday season this year. This Thanksgiving will be a lot different than last year, obviously. It seems like a lot more people are getting together, big festive gatherings, big family gatherings, going out of town, traveling. So this movie seems as appropriate as ever as we try to resume a normal sense of the holiday season compared to last year's 2020, where many of us spent the holiday kind of isolated from our family, or isolated from our friends. So by all means, check this movie out. If you haven't listened to our show before, maybe the show will inspire you to, but check this movie out. I think you can watch it on AMC Plus, all those good things, rent it on Prime. Steve Martin, John Candy, Layla Roberts, Michael McKean, Kevin Bacon has a cameo in this, Dylan Baker has a cameo in this. It is a comedy cavalcade of comedic cameos. Written and directed by John Hughes. Please go check this out. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from 1987. I link it with my brother Mark, and you are going to be delighted with this conversation. It's a lot of fun. So I want you to sit down, buckle up, hold on to your butts, and buckle up again. Let's go.
Del. Why did you kiss my ear?
Why are you holding my hand?
Where's your other hand?
Between two pillows.
Those aren't pillows.
Joining me once again via the Skype, my brother Mark. Happy Thanksgiving, sir. How are you?
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm good. How are you?
Hey, we're hanging in there. 2020 continues to chug along to a hopefully merciful ending, and we'll see if we can pick up the pieces in January.
We'll see. I doubt it. But we'll see.
You are a nihilist. You believe in nothing.
No, I'm just pessimistic.
Well, listen. Before we get into Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I thought it'd be appropriate for Thanksgiving to kind of talk a little bit about our Thanksgivings because we grew up having them together, which was quite nice.
Yes.
Well, what would be your favorite part of the Thanksgiving Day experience?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I suppose just the dinner itself.
Sure.
And just being with your family most of the day. I think some of our Thanksgivings, Dad worked a little bit, but he was there most of the day, I think. So
yeah, I think typically he would work in the mornings and then be home in the afternoons, and then would be annoyed that we were watching football games. So.
yeah.
Which the tables have turned in that situation because now when I call him on a Sunday afternoon, he's usually watching the Ravens game. So unbelievable. And he still secretly roots for the Steelers, which I don't understand because that's a big rivalry.
Well, he was never much into sports, so he might not understand that they are rivals.
I know, but he's our dad is such an interesting latecomer to the sports world.
Hey, God bless him. If he can be a Steelers fan and a Ravens fan at the same time, more power to him.
Right. No, that's fair. Was there a favorite dish that you had that you looked forward to every Thanksgiving that you had to have?
For me, it was always about the turkey and the stuffing. Those two things together.
And you liked it am I wrong, but you liked the stuffing in the bird?
No, I don't think we ever did that.
I thought we did it once because I think you wanted to try it.
That maybe if we did, then I think I don't think I cared for it very much.
No, I don't think we did. I don't think any of us did, and that's why it probably never happened again.
yeah. No, cook that separate. What are you doing?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was. I know we had done it at least once, but I couldn't remember if not doing it again was a joint decision or just Mom's decision because she didn't like it very much.
No, if I recall correctly, I think it was mushy or something.
It was very moist, extremely moist and mushy.
Yeah, I'm not about that.
What are your thoughts on potatoes?
I love them.
You like regular like mashed potatoes or like you go sweet potato?
I like regular, but I also like sweet potato. Preferably mashed, either sweet potato or regular. Mashed is the way to go, I think, for Thanksgiving.
All right, now will you do with the sweet potatoes? Will you do like those dressed up ones where it's like they're kind of like cut up, like cubed up, and they got the marshmallows on top? Are you into that mess?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm not either. I like sweet potatoes, but I kind of prefer a mashed, a little brown sugar, maybe some like crumbled pecans or something on top.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I am a potato fiend. I will have multiple kinds of potatoes at a Thanksgiving feast.
Yes. Your plate on Thanksgiving always looks like a volcano with gravy in the caldera.
That's well, I mean, there's two great vehicles for gravy, and mashed potatoes are one of them. You just smush it in there, and you get that lovely like dollop of it right there in the middle of your plate. And then you kind of build around that. And I am the guy who likes to kind of get my fork and I load it up like a little bite of everything, and kind of swirl it around the plate, which has in the past infuriated members of our family. So that's always fun.
Well, I mean, I know you made fun of me for being very dainty in the way that I eat sometimes because I want it all separate.
Yeah.
And I eat it separately. So I'm very, I guess, rigid and orderly about the way I eat my food.
That for anyone who knows you, that's not shocking to hear.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, you're a much more disciplined person than I am, and when it comes to Thanksgiving dinner in particular, I am. I like to consider myself in the upper echelon of gluttons. I just want all of it on the plate, in my mouth, as fast as possible.
Yeah, I'm definitely not about that.
No, you are not about that. You are a much more restrained individual when it comes to the feasting.
Yes.
Yeah, I love all. Give me all of it. I love all the sides. I don't care for green bean casserole. I think anyone who knows me knows why.
Have I had that? I don't even know if I've had that.
I feel like that was something we did did once or twice because I think I think our parents might have liked it. I think maybe Dad in particular liked it.
I mean, green beans have grown on me over the years. I do like green beans, but I don't recall having a casserole.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. I'm just getting myself hungry, so we'll have to change subjects here.
Okay.
The other thing I remember from Thanksgiving was usually you and I would end up outside at some point throwing the football around because like the Lions game was usually awful, so we would go outside during the Lions game and usually throw the football around and run around.
Yeah. I just remember that one year that the Bills were finally on, the Buffalo Bills were finally on Thanksgiving football, and they played the Lions, and it was like the one time the Lions decided to show up and kick the Bills' ass, and I was really upset about it.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the Buffalo Bills are not on, like, you don't really care about the games on Thanksgiving, do you?
No, I do. I watch them. I wouldn't say that I have a particular horse in the race, but I I follow them. I do watch them. I get interested, and there are certain teams that I prefer more so than others. So
Well, and now that there's like 3 games, it's become like a whole thing. I mean, I'll be honest, I rarely make it to that night game. I'm usually like passed out, covered in gravy and cheese.
I'm not passed out. I just cease to care at that point.
I thought 3 games on Thanksgiving was too much.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Because I feel like at night is when you're kind of spending time with your family and kind of winding down.
Yeah.
So, but I guess if your team is playing in that late game, then you're not gonna care.
Well, if you're like me and you don't really have a team anymore, you can just do whatever you want, which is wonderful.
I suppose so.
But no, in the dynamics of my marriage, I mean, I we generally I generally watch the games during the day, and when evening rolls around after we've eaten, I'm not so much of a butt that I tell Janine to stuff it, and I'm watching the third game too. It's like usually that's when it's like, yeah, you're right, it's time to hang out together. We'll watch something together because she has no interest in the football games, let alone the first 2 I watched, and so definitely not the third one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, family time, togetherness. That's usually when we start. We usually will start with the beginning of the Christmas movie marathons.
That is usually when that begins.
All right. So let's get off the food here. Let's kind of get. I do have another question or two for you, but this one's more germane to the film.
Okay.
Not that Thanksgiving's not germane to planes, trains, and automobiles, because obviously it's about getting home for the holiday.
Yep.
But again, this is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is another classic John Hughes road trip movie.
Yes.
I think it's reasonable to say that he's done the road trip movie better than most.
Sure.
I guess what I want to know is, you've done road trips. I've done road trips. We've all been there. We've all done that. Which, by the way,
Yes.
just for the record, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles came out in 1987, for anyone who couldn't quite remember the timeline. 87. Who is your ideal road trip partner? Who do you want to be on a road trip with? Is there such a thing as an ideal road trip partner?
Honestly, can I say myself?
Yes, you can.
I think it's just, you remember when I was in college and I would come up for the Christmas holiday from Miami to Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do, like, that's a long road trip, but I would do it really quick, and I would kind of do it in the middle of the night. And, like, that was always great to me. That was always just like a blast. Just me and the road. And I loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just going to say that for now.
Yeah, it's hard for me to argue with that because I've done that road trip a couple of times myself. Not that exact same one. When I did a DC to Miami, it was with our friend Damien, who was who was a good traveling companion. He was a lot of fun, and that worked out really nicely. But when I drove cross country a couple different times, I was usually by myself, and I ended up having a great time with myself. But that was also because like I was in my youth, and I could push myself, and I could drive for like 30 hours straight without having to stop or anything like that. You know?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm still pretty good at that. So.
Well, good for you, because now I'm tired after like 4 hours in the car. I'm like, could we find a hotel, please? I'm tired.
Nah, man.
No, I've lost my edge when it comes to like the road trip. I'm not quite as persistent on the we're making good time theory.
Yeah.
Especially because I have a wife who wants to go to the bathroom every 4 minutes. So.
Yes, that kind of thing does get in the way.
Yeah, or it's like, oh, we have to stop so we can walk the dogs. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, no dog walking.
All right. Well, let me ask you this question, and I'm springing this on you.
Oh boy.
But if you could road trip with any celebrity in the world, alive or dead, who would you pick?
Oh, probably because I just watched the movie. I'm gonna say John Candy.
Really?
Yeah.
You? Oh my God! I must be more Steve Martin like than I thought, because Dell's antics, woo, they would have triggered me.
Well, I mean, John Candy isn't Dell.
That's okay. So you just want John Candy himself? Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, but and I'm sure we'll get into this. Like Dell may be annoying, but he has a good heart, whereas Steve Martin or Neil Page is a complete asshole.
Spoilers for the conversation. Yeah, you're not. Yeah. Oh, okay. No. I think John Candy's a great pick. I mean, we grew up with John Candy movies. He was a big deal for us. We were always really excited to watch John Candy movies, and Uncle Buck's was like still one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love Uncle Buck, and I think he's great in this movie. I think this movie is kind of like quintessential John Candy, and that's why I say that. I'm just I just watched the movie, so it's fresh in my mind. But yeah, I don't know. He just seemed so blue collared and laid back, and like you're gonna have a good time with him. Not even this, but the character he plays in Home Alone.
You want the polka music?
Absolutely. Polka.
That was good stuff. You're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think John Candy's a solid pick.
All right. How about you?
All right. So my pick is so ridiculous because it's just I just want to be friends with this man so desperately. It's so sad.
Boy. Oh man.
I just think Chris Hemsworth seems like a really cool guy to hang out with.
Oh, you and your love affair with Chris Hemsworth.
That the man is beautiful and funny.
I mean, I'm not gonna disagree. I thought you might say like Chris Pratt or something.
No, Hemsworth looks like more fun.
Hemsworth looks like more fun. Okay.
I mean, and I don't mean this as a knock on Pratt, but apparently he's like very Christian, so I'm not sure he'll appreciate my jokes.
That's true. I don't think he'd have a problem with your jokes.
I don't know. I can be pretty racy sometimes. I work blue a lot, Mark. I work blue a lot.
What?
That means I drop the dirty jokes in there, man.
Oh, okay.
Not familiar with that term? Come on, man. I thought you're in the industry.
No.
It's called working blue. Look it up.
I will.
All right. Well, let's talk about the movie. Like we said, from 1987, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, written, directed, produced by John Hughes, starring Steve Martin and John Candy as our main players. There's some fun little cameos in there that maybe we'll get to talk about. But that's kind of where we need to focus.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talked about it before we did the recording. I didn't really want to go beat by beat through the movie necessarily. I thought it might be more interesting just to kind of tackle it from a couple different angles. Like, let's talk about it. I mean, you kind of said your feelings already. Let's talk about Steve Martin's character, Neil Page.
Okay.
So you made it known how you feel. You think he's an asshole.
He's an asshole.
Talk about it. Give me the reasons why. Present your case.
He's mean, and I think he's mean spirited, and I think it comes from this boring, predictable life that he lives, where he's kind of always in control, and then as soon as you take him out of that, as soon as he loses control, he just loses it, and he gets mean on you, and it's just not the type of person that you necessarily want to be around.
You don't think that has anything to do with Dell's sort of? I mean, let's put it bluntly. They're very opposite of each other. But you don't think the things that Dell does are button pushing worthy?
Oh, I definitely think they are. But I think it comes down to that scene in the hotel room where Steve Martin finally, like, he loses it. He's had enough of Dell's shenanigans, his annoying qualities, and that's an understatement, you know. and Steve Martin just rips into him, and it goes on for so long. And it's just like, stop. Just, he's had enough. Just stop.
Oh,
he just keeps going.
It's a completely uncomfortable scene for sure. But to be fair, like I said, I think Neil gets pushed pretty hard. I mean, they're forced to share a hotel together in Wichita at this point in the movie, and I mean, Dell's just kind of doing his thing. But it's all, and like you said, I mean, sure, he definitely seems to have a good heart and a good spirit about him. But I mean, it's the things he does are with, like, I feel zero consideration for the fact he has to share this room with another man. Putting his, hanging his underwear up on the towel racks and washing his socks in the sink, and taking the towels out of the bathroom. It's stuff like that. It was like that. I feel like that would set off anybody.
It would set off.
And then he spills beer in the bed and makes Neil sleep in it.
Absolutely, I agree. But the thing is that Steve Martin should have said something well ahead of time. and the Neil Page character, Dell or Neil complains about having to sleep in the puddle of beer, and Dell says, "Oh, do you want me to sleep in it?" Well, but Neil then decides to kind of martyr himself, like, no, it's fine, whatever. Well, clearly it's not fine. So this whole thing, if he had just been a little more honest with Dell up front and called him out sooner, then I feel like that whole thing could have been avoided. Like Steve Martin is the kind of guy who just like he bottles up his anger and then it explodes on you.
So the real person at fault in this movie is social decorum.
Sure.
If Neil had just expressed himself instead of, like, grinning and burying it, things would have been better.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I do think Neil makes a lot of this falls on Neil's shoulders, because he knows he's going to this business. He has this business meeting in New York City on 2 days before Thanksgiving. It's like the Tuesday leading up to Thanksgiving week. He's in this business meeting. He doesn't know when it's going to wrap up. He just hopes that it wraps up so he can catch the 6:00 flight back to Chicago. And it's like, what, 4:45 when he finally gets out of the meeting with Ferris Bueller's dad, and
something
and
like
then he
that.
has to, like, dart to the airport. He's in the taxi cab line, and it's again, if he had just taken the 8:00 with Ferris Bueller's dad, I'm assuming he would have been home A-okay.
Well, I mean, probably not, because presumably Ferris Bueller's dad was flying into O'Hare as well, and every flight was canceled. So I think that guy got held up too.
Okay, that's a very realistic possibility. But wouldn't you also think too? I mean, listen. Maybe it's just me, and like when it comes to travel, I'm kind of a play it safe person. Like I'll just sit at the airport and wait to get on whatever the next flight's gonna be that I can make, because the idea of going through what they go through to try and get ahead of the storms and the travel delays and all these other things it's bananas crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
Because well, hold on, let me just put this out there too, because the initial plan is there. You have the great opening scene with Steve Martin racing to catch the cab, racing Kevin Bacon, and then
Yes.
tripping over Dell's trunk. He doesn't know it's Dell yet. And then when he finally does flag a cab down, which he has to buy off of a lawyer for $75, which is another crazy weird scene. But that's how desperate Steve Martin is to make this flight. And then Dell does end up stealing his cab.
Right.
And and Neil chases him down the street, which is again a funny way to open the show, and you kind of know, all right, this is going to be off to a rocky start with these two already. But eventually Neil does get to the airport, and he seemingly will make the flight. But then there's like a delay first, and then they finally board, and Neil's bumped, which that's got to piss you off too if you paid for a first class seat and you get bumped to coach.
Yeah.
And then they get what's it when they get diverted to Wichita because of the storms in Chicago.
Right.
And so again, and we'll talk about how Dell and Neil sort of connect during all this. But they're just in Wichita together to spend the night, and then they're supposed to go to the airport, right? Or they skip that completely, right? They're like, no, we're done, and then it's like off to wherever.
It's so yeah, they get diverted to Wichita, and then they decide, well, instead of spending the night at the airport, let's just go get a motel. And then after the motel, they're supposed to there's a conversation at some point where they're saying like all the flights
are booked. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're then at that point kind of forced into taking a train.
Okay. All right. So we'll put a pin in Neil's side of things right here. Let's kind of talk about Dell and the way that the movie opens, the way the movie introduces him.
Yeah.
Because I think Steve Martin is supposed to be the character that I guess he's our point of view character.
I would definitely say he is. Yeah.
And you know, Dell's sort of this like he's a what is he, a shower curtain ring salesman.
Yes.
And so he's a bit of a big personality, because I guess, you know, most salesmen have a kind of talkative nature about them, you know, because they're always kind of selling, whether it's their product or themselves.
Right.
And you know, like you said, Neil is a much more closed in kind of guy.
Yeah, he's much more reserved and to himself.
Yeah. So when the two actually first encounter each other, I mean, there's that brief flash when Neil finally catches the cab in New York City, and Dell sees him and is like scared of him.
Right.
But then the cab drives away. So it isn't until they're at the airport together, sitting right across from each other, that they really kind of get to interact with one another.
Yes.
And Dell realizes that he did steal Neil's cab.
Right.
Part of me still thinks that Dell did that on purpose.
I think he kind of did too. It's kind of a shitty thing.
Yeah, I again, I don't say it as to imply that Dell's a bad person, but he can be slightly shady to kind of get things done. Like, I think he saw these two guys arguing over the cab and was like, well, I'll just take it.
Yeah. Or, you know, the other thing is that the character is so kind of oblivious to certain things that you can also see where, you know, maybe he really just wasn't, maybe he saw what was going on but wasn't really aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, he
you know?
Yeah, I know. We'll fuck it. We'll just jump ahead. But I mean, you know, the scene where shortly before the car catches on fire, or actually right as the car catches on fire, we find out that Dell paid for that rental with Neil's credit card.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's hoping that credit card was put in his wallet by Neil as an act of kindness. That seems like a bit of a reach, but
That is
it's
the
hilarious.
worst excuse.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, but the movie's continuity is solid on that because it does their cards get switched in Wichita at the motel, and that's the payoff of it is finally coming through is during the car on fire scene.
Yes.
So yeah, but again, maybe shady was a strong word, but Dell is I don't know if blissfully naive, but I mean he's definitely blissfully optimistic that things are always going to work out in his favor.
Right.
How about let's kind of pause in the movie real quick. When you travel,
Okay.
who are you more like, Neil or Dell?
Definitely more like Neil.
Oh, no, same here, 100%.
Yeah.
So when you say that Neil's an asshole, I definitely see where you're coming from because there are definitely parts in the movie where Neil is outright mean.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I sort of understand because as a traveler, I am very inward. I keep to myself, I keep my head down, and I focus on whatever distractions I brought to entertain myself, usually reading or watching something on my iPad or whatever.
Yeah.
I have no desire to engage in a conversation with the person next to me, other than like a polite pleasantry if I have to get past them to go to the restroom or whatever.
Sure.
And I try to establish that early on. That like I'll like, hello, how are you? And then I, put the earbuds in or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the extent of it for me. Because though I do get upset if that person decides to go to sleep and then I have to step over them to go to the bathroom, I get really annoyed.
Okay.
Or it's even worse when you have to wake them up because then they're all cranky about it. But yeah. I don't know anybody necessarily who's like Dell when it comes to like. I mean, I've definitely seen it on the flight, the talkative person next to you. Luckily, I've been able to avoid it most of my life.
I've had that a little bit, and like it's not too bad. I'm a little different when I travel in the sense that the things that I have to distract myself, which is usually just something that I'm working on my laptop or a book. I don't know. I find it very hard to kind of concentrate on things on a plane. So a lot of time, if someone's kind of willing to make conversation, I'm okay with it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get tired of it eventually. I don't want it to go on forever, but so I'm a little bit go with the flow in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Dell is just his character is sort of a jumble of all of those annoying people that we come across when we travel.
Yeah.
It's like he's everything that we don't want to encounter when we travel. And that's part of what makes Neil work as a character, because we completely understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yes, I think I think you're right. That's why I was a little when you said he's an asshole, I was like, well, I think we're all supposed to kind of be Neil when we watch this.
No, I think he is, but that's the thing. But in saying that, it's like we feel that way towards that person that is annoying us, but we forget that person is also another human being.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And just as a point of clarification, if someone's talking to me on the plane, like I talk back and I respond. I
sure.
Much like another character that we talk about, but we can't talk about right now publicly. I don't want to be rude to anybody. So I'll engage with you as long as I can, and then when I get the opportunity to plug into something else, I will.
Right.
But let me ask you. Okay, so let's get to this real quick. A point of travel etiquette that must be discussed.
Okay.
When you're on that plane, would you have the balls to rip off your shoes and socks?
I want to say yes, but I don't think I would.
I wouldn't either. I would be terrified of people finding out it was me.
If I was wearing like a pair of slip-on shoes, sure, but it would stop there. I would not take off my socks.
I can almost I sort of appreciate that. I get that. That sort of makes some sense. But the production that Dell makes when he rips his socks off is...
Oh yeah, he's like flipping them around and swinging them.
And just the sounds he's making of like Sweet Relief.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, get me off of this plane. Call Homeland Security right now. There's a terrorist on board.
Wow, all right.
He's a foot terrorist. Excuse me. Jeez Louise, that snuck up on me. So, our characters, they're in Wichita, and then in that motel, shortly before, I think it's right before, no, it's right after their fight. After they eventually fall asleep, and then they get robbed.
Yes.
So their money's gone. Their cash is stolen, I should say. They still have a couple credit cards, and Neil has a gas card.
Yeah.
As he's very happy to point out.
Yeah, well, one thing when I was watching this that I really liked was it was made in 1987 when people between the two of them they have like 2 credit cards, and one is a credit card to like a department store.
Right.
And not everybody accepts credit cards either. And I don't know, I just found that I think it helps like enhance the story, and it's just one of those things that you couldn't do today because everyone has plastic, everyone takes plastic, and
well, the thing I noticed, or that I've wondered when I watched the movie, and I've wondered this for a while now, because like Neil has a Diners Club card. Does anyone even know what the hell Diners Club is anymore? I don't even know if I know what it was back then. I just knew of it as a thing.
Yeah, I don't think I know what it is exactly either.
Right, but that was like a term that we heard growing up in like the 80s and early 90s. Nowadays, you say Diners Club to somebody, they're like, what? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Go back to your time machine, old man. You don't belong here.
Nope.
So whenever they keep dropping like that Diners Club reference, and I'm like, man, people must be so... Like, what the fuck is Diners Club?
Yeah.
I didn't even know if our parents had a Diners Club card, because I don't think that was really their jam.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so they get robbed. Oh, let me ask you this question too, because when they figure out that they've been robbed, they're at a diner, they're eating breakfast, they're getting ready to get a ride to the train station from the hotel clerk or manager's son. And we should point out, Dell seems to know everybody at all these places because he's sold them shower ring curtains and whatever. So Dell has like these like connections in a lot of places that they end up going, and using Dell's connections to help get back to Chicago.
Yes.
When they are figuring out that they got robbed and they're going into their wallets for their cash, and Neil says that he had $700 in his wallet. Were you blown away by that like I was?
I wouldn't say blown away, but I'd be like, that's a lot of money to carry in your wallet.
I was trying to think back. Like, I don't remember our parents ever having that kind of cash in their wallet.
No, that's just irresponsible.
That seems really irresponsible. I agree with you 100%.
I mean, it could be because he's traveling. Maybe. I don't know.
That was the only thing I could think of as well, is like, maybe back then still there weren't a lot of places that took credit cards,
right.
and, maybe it was more localized, or not localized necessarily, but limited in what credit cards were accepted. I mean, I remember for a long time, back in the 90s when I first got a credit card, so many stores, I had a Discover card, and a lot of places didn't take Discover card back in the day. Right. Now the idea of somebody saying, like, oh, we don't take that method of payment is just completely out the window.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could think of was like, maybe credit card usage was a little bit more limited back in like the mid 80s.
No, it definitely was. I remember our mom and dad talking about like, oh, this place doesn't take credit card, that place doesn't take credit card, that kind of thing. So it was, I think at the time, still a fairly new technology, I guess, and not everyone had adapted to it.
Right. Right. So then we get. Well, and I'm going kind of beat by beat again too, but
That's all
I
right.
definitely had to mention Dylan Baker's
Absolutely.
Dylan Baker as Owen, the son of the motel manager, who's going to drive them to the train station, which isn't in Wichita. It's in a different town whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't
And
remember
they
it
have to
either.
sit in the back of an open pickup truck in the middle of November or in late November in Kansas. But
Yes.
Dylan Baker, a character actor we've seen in a million different things, probably most recognizable to this audience as Professor Kurt Connors in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yes.
But definitely somebody you recognize. I mean, how was it a trip just to see him in this movie at all as like this crazy redneck character?
Yeah, absolutely. When he showed up, I was like, "Oh, I forgot. I forgot he was in this, and I forgot he was this character." And it's not the type of character you would expect him to play, and he's just like so perfect.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely one of his early performances. And I know
Yeah,
we mentioned the Kevin Bacon cameo earlier, but in Dylan Baker's role doesn't count as a cameo because he's a young actor at this point. But
right.
apparently, all those like weird like facial tics and like the snorting and all that stuff was improvised. And I'm just like, how the hell did he come up with this? Because it's so weird. And I read one little detail that I thought was really interesting. But apparently, the part where he sort of like spits his chew and then wipes his mouth with his hand and then shakes Neil's hand
Right.
was done at the urging of John Hughes, who knew that Steve Martin was like really OCD about germs and stuff,
Oh, really?
and they wanted him to kind of freak out because apparently, like as soon as that happened, Steve Martin ran off the set and to go wash his hands, and everyone started laughing, thought it was hilarious.
That's great. I'm the type of person I feel like that's how you should direct, and I feel like just no one really does that type of stuff anymore.
It's
So
I mean, don't get me wrong, like shaking hands with somebody who has like some spit on their hands is gross.
that's gross.
I but I feel like it's even grosser now in 2020 where we're all becoming so much more aware of germs and how they're spread.
Yep.
Where it's just like, no, I don't want to touch your hand ever again. Thanks. I know this is off topic, but I mean, do you think handshakes ever come back?
Yes.
Really? I think handshakes are
Yeah.
done.
If handshakes are done, I'm done.
Well, you are a handshaker.
Like that's so ridiculous. Like if we end up with a vaccine at some point and this becomes a memory, the idea of people not shaking hands is fucking ridiculous to me. Like, great, let's all just stay in our houses and have fucking Zoom meetings and be even more socially awkward than we already are.
Well,
Wonderful.
that's the track we're on. I mean, this is just speeding it up.
Yeah, well, no thank you.
Um, God, we're only in Kansas so far as it goes. But so they get on the train and they get stuck, but they kind of
Yes.
separate the train. They have to sit in separate sections. Train
Yes.
breaks down.
Yeah.
They reconvene, but then they also decide to go separate ways. Like Neil doesn't want to get stuck with Dale. He feels like Dale's holding him back.
Right.
And
Yeah, there's that sort of breakup scene at the diner.
now Neil, I feel like Neil tries to be very polite about it, but Dale does take it very personally.
Yes.
I do really like John Candy's reaction to that. Because I think Dell is really hopeful and optimistic that he's making a friend out of Neil,
Right.
and then for Neil to just kind of like be like, I don't want anything to do with you. I just want to go home. It was just like kind of throwing some dirt in his face.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that thing where it's Neil is our window kind of into he's our perspective character, and at that moment, John Candy just seems to be reacting like an insecure little baby, but we're not thinking about like who he actually is as a person and why he is kind of this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think I think it's a good scene for kind of establishing sort of what ends up to be the reveal later in the film.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
It's a good sort of foreshadowing of the reveal later in the film, at the end of the film.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because the thing is yeah, because like we're with Steve Martin the whole time, and it's like we know Steve Martin's story, but we never get Dell's story really.
No,
and
you just get little hints of it and little comments here and there about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, and you know, and I think that's not to agree with you necessarily on the Neil being a complete asshole sort of thing, but the fact that he doesn't really ask a lot of questions about Dell and like his life and stuff like that, while Dell seems very interested in Neil and his life and things like that, is interesting for sure.
Yeah, like the Steve Martin character, he's a little sort of self-involved.
He is a little self-involved.
I don't mean it as an insult to the character, because I think everybody's a little self-involved.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, and Neil's very focused on getting home for the holiday and all that stuff. I mean, you know, I to an extent I do understand it, but I mean, you're traveling with somebody, you know, you're spending a lot of time with one person. You think you would sort of, you know, try to get to know them a little better.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, especially someone who, despite all of his flaws and all of his annoyances, I mean, Dell really is just trying to help.
Yeah, sure. What did you think of these two on the bus?
I loved it.
And actually, I did get my story a little out of order. They go on the bus before they have that final meal together, and then they separate.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I can't think of any single person I know who is like, oh man, I'm taking a bus trip soon. I can't wait.
No one says that.
Like, it's got to be the most, I don't know if loathed is the right word, but like it's got to be like the last option, right?
I would say so. It's definitely you're definitely going to end up with some interesting characters, and it's probably the slowest method of travel.
Yeah, because I mean you're subject to everything you would be in a car. I mean, traffic and delays and you know, potential breakdowns.
Yeah, trains I think can be slower depending on how many stops, but yeah.
It's bananas to me. I've never traveled by bus outside of like a school trip or anything, so I couldn't swear to any of this.
Yeah, no, me neither. But no, it's a fun scene where Dell it just kind of showcases the two characters, whereas Dell's kind of a man of the people and he starts singing kind of show tunes that everyone likes, and then Steve Martin tries to lead the bus passengers in a song, and it's like everyone's just like, what is this?
Yeah, they all turn and look at him like with just like disgust in their eyes.
Yeah, it's like it's the visual equivalent of the record scratch. You know?
Yes. There's an interesting tidbit apparently for that bus scene. A young Jerry Ryan was cast in that bus scene, but she couldn't stop laughing at Steve Martin and John Candy, so they had to replace her.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Though I think her career worked out okay, so don't feel too bad for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you know,
did you... I just wanted...
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
The one thing that Neil does where I feel like he was completely valid was that... those two passengers.
The ones making out?
Yeah. Like, I mean, they were making out, like, right in his
Oh,
face.
it's gross.
Yeah,
so
and then
gross.
they give him a bunch of shit for looking. Like, what? Like,
Right.
how about you just take it outside?
But I do love Dell's reaction to him getting busted. It's so funny
Yeah.
the way he just laughs at him.
Well, especially because he's the one who told him to look.
Yeah, you're right. Dell kind of egged him on, and then he
Yeah.
got busted for it. Which almost feels like a scene that would show up later in Seinfeld, like 10 years later, when Jerry nudges George to check out some cleavage, and then he gets caught for it.
I vaguely remember that.
It's when they were trying to sell the show to NBC, and it's the daughter of like the NBC executive.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So, don't worry, we can do a Seinfeld podcast down the road. Don't worry.
Well, I mean, speaking of Seinfeld, we did get a cameo from Larry Hinkin, who played Tom Pepper, the fake Kramer.
Yes,
in
and
Seinfeld.
he is the man who drives the taxi from the airport in Wichita to that motel, and it's a very ostentatious is a nice way to say it, but I mean it's kind of trashy looking, right? I mean it's
a great cab. If I'm
it's pimped out.
riding in
it's
a cab,
pimped out.
That's the cab I want to ride in.
Fair enough, but he's so sleazy.
Yeah. And he's taking them the long way.
Yeah.
So that he can get more money.
And
that's great.
Larry Dobbin, also known as Mr. Hinkle in Friends, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
So he's been around. He's done some stuff.
Yeah, mostly a TV actor.
Yeah, for sure. But it was fun to kind of see him and recognize him as that taxi driver. And again, it's just
definitely...
like a total skis ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's telling he wants to take them the scenic route so they can see the sights at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. All right, so the bus gets to St. Louis, and again, they have their meal. They part ways. Neil's going to rent a car, and he's going to drive the rest of the way home. Except the car is not there. He's dropped off in this giant lot of cars, and he has to trek back to the airport, and he's just... just blind fury when he finally gets to the terminal, to the rental car place.
Yes.
And he has one of the, in my opinion, epic rants of all time against Edie McClurg, who everyone remembers as the secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's right.
And because I love the scene so much, I'm going to play it. So listen up, Mark. You ready?
All right.
All right, here we go.
Oh, bye-bye.
Steve Martin, so upset.
Welcome to Marathon. May I help you?
Yes.
How may I help you?
You can start by wiping that fucking dumbass smile off your rosy fucking cheeks. Then you can give me a fucking automobile, a fucking Datsun, a fucking Toyota, a fucking Mustang, a fucking Buick, 4 fucking wheels and a seat.
I really don't care for the way you're speaking to me.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of fucking nowhere with fucking keys to a fucking car that isn't fucking there. And I really didn't care to fucking walk down a fucking highway and across a fucking runway to get back here to have you smile in my fucking face. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
May I see your rental agreement?
I threw it away.
Big mistake.
Boy,
Oh boy, what?
you're fussed.
That cracks me up every time because like Edie gets him at the end. He's so
He gets him at
rude.
the end.
He's so rude and belligerent.
Yeah, but that's what I mean when I'm just like, what an asshole. Like, she had nothing to do with that. That's not her fault. You're just gonna come at her with that attitude, and you were so stupid that you threw away the receipt.
Yeah. No, listen, as a individual who works in the retail world and has been on the end of some of these kind of types of conversations, I totally sympathize with her. I understand his frustration, but
Yeah.
you don't throw away your rental agreement. That's just, that's just protocol. You don't do that.
Oh yeah, that and I feel like it's also just like no matter what, no matter what happens, that person behind the desk, like that's not that person's fault. You don't come at them with that kind of hostility and attitude. I understand the anger, absolutely. But
Yeah, and
oh
and, and
man,
and to be fair, like Neil does get his sort of comeuppance
he does.
at this point when he tries to verbally abuse another person who just punches him in the
Yes.
fucking face for it,
Right.
and then Dell almost runs him over in a car.
And then carries him by the nuts.
Carries him by the nuts, and you get to hear him talk awkwardly.
Yes, that's right.
But this gets us to my favorite chunk of the movie, which is where they're in the rental car together, and Dell is continuing to be, I don't know if obnoxious is right, but I mean, he's fiddling with the seat, and then the seat's going to be broken later when it's Neil's turn to sit in it, because Dell couldn't stop putzing with it.
Right.
But I love them in the car so much. When Dell gets his hands, he's trying to take his parka off, but he gets them both hooked around the knobs on either side of the seat.
Yes.
So he has to like scream and rip the seat apart in his jacket while Neil's asleep next to him.
Yeah, no, it's my favorite sequence of the movie as well.
Yeah, and then also you get just prior to that, or no, I think it's just after that actually, is when Dell has the cigarette and he tries to flick it out the window, and he's unaware that it doesn't make it out the window and it lands in the back seat. And yeah, I think it's great because it's one of those moments where bad things are coming, but it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, because it's back there for a while, and you see smoke, a little bit of smoke in the background for a few shots, and both Steve Martin and John Candy are saying that it's hot in the car, and they build up to it,
Yeah, and actually, I think I got my sequence of events wrong. I think Dell flicking the cigarette butt happens before he tries to take the parka off, so I might be a little bit backwards on that.
Yeah, because he's just driving along. He's having a grand old time listening to like jazz, blues music on the radio.
I think he's listening to Ray
Neil
Charles.
Sleeps. What's that?
I think he's listening to Ray Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like after that, that's when he flicks his cigarette, hits the window, bounces back into the back seat, and then he gets hot
and tries to
take the parka off and is driving with no hands on the wheel, driving with his crotch, basically.
Yeah, and then and once they skid around, they're coming off an on-ramp because his hands are pinned to his side, so he can't use the steering wheel. Like you said, he's trying to drive with his knees and his crotch, basically. And they finally rips his arms free. The car's in a spin out.
Yeah.
And as they, and they're fine. Nothing happens. But, he tells Neil that, I almost hit a deer. And Neil goes back to sleep or whatever. And then they get back on the freeway. But because they spun out, he doesn't know what direction he is. So he just goes up the ramp. And we know that Dell is now going. He's going the wrong direction in one-way traffic. Basically, he's going north on a southbound lane or whatever.
Right.
And and this leads to one of my favorite parts. I love this part of the movie so much. We're opening the podcast with the sequence where the drivers across the freeway are trying to tell them they're going the wrong direction.
Yes.
And Dell's response was like, "Oh, they're drunk. They don't know where we're going."
Yeah, that's right.
It's so good. And Neil's just like, "Yeah, they don't know where we're going. What the hell?"
Yeah.
And then the trucks come.
Right.
And the trucks come. Neil, you see the skeleton of Neil, you see the skeleton of Dell. Neil looks over at Dell and sees the devil.
Yeah. Probably my favorite gag in the movie is just that shot right there. He just sees Dell as the devil.
Yeah, and so as they narrowly make it through these two trucks coming at them on the freeway, and Dell finally slams the brakes on once they're clear. And we haven't talked much about Dell's giant trunk that he just lugs everywhere with him. But they slam the brakes on, and the trunk just goes flying as it and the
Yes.
lid of the trunk break free from the car. It just flies out into the middle of the road. And and their screaming and their yelling is so loud and so funny. And then when they finally stop and you watch Neil pulling his fingers off the dashboard and Del prying his hands off the steering wheel, and you see the steering wheel's like bent forward because he was pressing so hard on it. It's just
Right.
It makes me laugh just thinking about it. So good. So they go out to retrieve the trunk, and that's when they have a conversation. Neil thinks it's really funny that Dell's been getting away with a lot of stuff. You know, a lot of things have kind of been breaking in Dell's favor, despite the fact that they were robbed. You know, he hasn't had to pay for a lot of things, and various... Dell's been able to kind of finagle his way out of things by selling shower curtain rings as earrings to people. And so Del, Dell's kind of been savvy, making things happen.
Yeah.
But Neil finds it really hilarious that this time around, he can't get out of this. He's going to have to return that car, and it is fucked up.
Right.
And that's when we get the reveal that Del thought that Neil maybe put his own credit card in Dell's wallet so he could rent a car.
Yes.
So Neil realizes that the car is fucked up. It's in his name. He's going to be responsible for it. And that's when the cigarette lights and the car catches fire.
Right.
Which, again, I think is just perfect comedic timing for everything. You knew that cigarette was in there, but you kind of get distracted by the other events.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily forget about it unless you're just not, that in tune with it. But what a great moment for all of a sudden the entire car to ignite on fire.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing where it's like, they set the cigarette up as being kind of the catastrophe that's going to go wrong while they're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But then it turns out that everything else goes wrong, and then the car lighting on fire is just kind of like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, exactly. It's really great the way they did that. I thought that again. That's why it's like my favorite sequence in the film, because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good stuff. But this is when Neil's had it. Neil has officially had it at this point. He slugs Del in the stomach, and then trips over his trunk. Right.
Because that is the thing. Again, I've talked about how Neil's a jerk, but the whole all the way through the movie is like, yes, he is a jerk, but he always ends up getting his kind of comeuppance.
Yeah.
Like every single time, it's like just like karma's a bitch, and it just strikes him right there. It's like so.
But it's shortly after this that Neil's character sort of, I don't know if transformation is going to be accurate, but after the car is done being on fire, it still drives, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Quality craftsmanship.
Yeah. So Neil finds the nearest motel for them, but he is just done with Del. They go to the office. Neil's getting a room for himself and himself only. He offers up like $17 in his watch, which is a very nice watch. We see it at the beginning of the film. They show it.
Right. And
he's going to go sleep alone and he's just over this. If Del can't get his own room, he has to sleep in the car or, find his own way or whatever. Because Del's been talking his way out of things, out of harmful scenarios. Except Del can't talk his way out of this one, so he has to go sit in the car and potentially sleep in the car. And that's sort of the moment for Neil, where he looks out the window and he sees, a fairly pathetic figure of John Candy huddled up in the car in the snow, and sort of I don't know. Do you think it's take pity, or what do you think it is, or just maybe just understanding it and just shows compassion finally?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it is kind of Neil having sort of a moment of clarity that again, Del's been with him all this time, and despite all of his flaws and all the things that Del has put him through, he's just been trying to help him all the way, and he's been standing by him through all of this. And it's seeing him sitting out there in the cold in the car, it appeals to Neil's better nature.
Yeah, I think so too. So Neil's going to invite him in, and they have a really they sort of bond at this point.
Yes.
They share some drinks. They share some Doritos.
Yes, from
the vending
the
machine.
snack machine.
Yeah, and they sort of finally seem to make peace with each other, and that they're going to help each other get home. And this is like the last leg of the film and the last leg of the movie, the last leg of their journey, I should say.
Yeah.
And they're kind of finally on the same page with each other. No pun intended for Neil Page.
Yeah.
But I did want to back it up for 1 second because there was one thing I noticed that I wanted to ask you about. They're on the side of the freeway after they're going the wrong direction, after the trucks, after the trunk, and you see a sign behind them that says Chicago, and it's like 102 miles, to Chicago.
Okay.
At this point, if it were you, would you not just call your family to come fucking pick you up? Like, for the love of God, throw the kids in the car and come get me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it's 100 miles. Like, that's not that far.
No, that's not far at all. No, yeah, it's a good point. But I guess I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just something I noticed. I was like, oh, it's like only 102 miles. I think I would have called for a ride by now.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Well, I mean, he was flying home, so I guess even if Neil's family only had one car, the wife would have the car.
I mean, unless maybe the car's at the airport, maybe. Is that a viable scenario?
Actually, yeah. I mean, it kind of is.
Okay, so maybe that's the situation.
Yeah.
Which at this point, I then ask, like, couldn't one of those lame ass family members have come picked him up? They had to be traveling from somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I think Neil might have had some options. He might have tried figuring it out.
Well, well, look, I don't want to say anything about his wife, but she seems like kind of a pill. So, maybe he just was like, I don't want to deal with that shit.
That's an interesting notion on that.
His whole family seemed very uptight, like him. So
perhaps she did seem a little I don't know, like non-sympathetic. Not that. No, I don't want to say that. She just seemed kind of miffed that he couldn't figure out how to get home.
Right. It's like I'm doing the best I can over here.
No, I mean, to be fair, St. Louis to Chicago is not that far, but so. These lovely Midwest stories.
We'll see how she does in this situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to contrast with another great John Hughes road trip movie, Dutch, at least in that movie, it's established that not calling for help is a key element in their journey.
Sure.
I think for this, it was just kind of became convenient. Like, well, they can't just call for help because then the movie's over.
Right.
Which makes movie sense, and I'm okay with movie sense. I just wanted to kind of pose this to you.
Yeah, and I agree with you. They could have done more to explain that. I didn't notice the sign there, but it does make sense. Because they do drive in the next day, so.
Yeah. So after their bonding, they hit the road in their burnt up car. And we get one of my favorite cameos of the movie, which is Michael McKean as the state trooper. Yeah. And John Candy's very convincingly telling the state trooper that car is still roadworthy.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I think Michael McKean handles it perfectly because he plays such a great kind of like straight man where it's like he just can't believe these two are driving this car, and you almost get the sense like he kind of wants to help, but because of his duty, he can't. I don't know if I'm the only one who got that.
I mean, I think he's not like unsympathetic, but he knows like that car shouldn't be on the road. I mean,
exactly.
The first question out of his mouth when he comes to the car is he's like, "What the hell are you driving?"
Yeah. Well, wouldn't that be your first question? Like, what is going on?
Well, it was so it was so funny. I've recently watched this, and then a few weeks ago I had watched Clue, another movie with a young Michael McKean in it, and it's so funny to see him so young in a couple different things, because I don't know if you were watching Better Call Saul, but he was in the first couple seasons of that, and it's just like, wow, man, like all these people you kind of grew up with just getting so old, but to see him so young again was so wonderful.
Yeah, I have not watched Better Call Saul, so I did look him up on IMDb after watching this, and I saw he was on it. I was like, oh, but yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and Michael McKean, one of the stars of one of my favorite movies of all time, which is This Is Spinal Tap.
It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, we'll do a podcast for that one eventually too. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it's truly great.
I mean, that's one of those. Not to derail this Planes, Trains, and Automobile specific episode, but if we did a Spinal Tap episode, it might be 2 parts because I have so much to say about that movie and how brilliant it is.
Okay. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember like it just was great.
Yeah, I tried to get Janine to watch it one time, and she was not having it.
It's one of those things I feel like you kind of have to at least be a little bit interested in heavy metal to appreciate it.
Sure, but I mean, well, whatever. We can go down that road later. But the car gets impounded, and our heroes seem to be stuck, except Del comes through again, and he's able to get them a ride in a cheese truck.
Yes.
But they have to sit in the back of the truck with the cheese, where it's cold.
Yeah. It was only 3 hours.
But this gets them to Chicago, where they are going to part ways on the platform of the elevated train that runs through Chicago. We've seen it in 1,000 different movies.
Yep.
And they're going to say their goodbyes, and Neil's going to get home.
Yes.
Except once apart, Neil starts to kind of put together the puzzle pieces all of a sudden.
Right.
And realize that Del has nowhere to go.
Right.
And so he goes back to the train station and finds him, and invites him over for Thanksgiving dinner, and order is restored in the world of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yep.
So a nice, sweet wrap up there. Now, apparently, initially, the original ending for the movie was just that Del follows him home.
Ooh, that's weird.
And that's weird, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess John Hughes, after seeing it that way, decided that was just kind of pathetic.
Right.
So they went back and they were able to, I guess on the train when Neil's kind of thinking about his family and stuff like that, they just kind of kept the camera rolling. So they were able to get all this footage of Steve Martin as he's kind of like going through his lines mentally. Mm-hmm. And there was enough facial expressions there that they were like, okay, we can shape this into something, and then we'll shoot a new ending at the house.
Right.
Which is basically what they did.
I mean, that's interesting because they have the storyline throughout the film that, John Candy's character, Del, has a wife, Marie.
Right.
And he carries her picture with him wherever he goes, and so the little bit of backstory that we think we have of him is that he has a wife, Marie, and she's at home waiting for him. But then the reveal is that Marie passed away 8 years ago, and John Candy has nowhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically homeless. He lives on the road.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't know, he's like a hobo with a job.
Yeah, I mean, he again, that's one of those clues you get early in the picture when he says that he hasn't been home in years.
Right. Yeah.
No, but apparently that was all in play, but the way it sat with John Hughes was he didn't like that Del followed him home and then kind of revealed himself that way, because he just was like, that makes him kind of pathetic. Then that was more important for Neil to kind of put that together and then bring Del home on his own, because that way you don't feel that Del's pathetic. He's just, he's just alone and needs help.
Right.
And I guess you don't feel pity for him, I suppose, is the way to.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he had that revelation, because I don't think the film would work nearly as well without that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that.
For one thing, it's bad for both characters, because it makes Dell kind of more pathetic and weird and creepy,
Hmm.
and it's also Neil doesn't get to kind of round out his arc, where it's like he's finally thinking about this person, someone other than himself, and kind of like puts that all together, and reaches out to this individual who's kind of been reaching out to him the whole movie.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's I'm very glad that John Hughes had that realization, because otherwise I think it's a disservice to both characters.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Neil needed that kind of revelatory moment, and it shows that, like, again, after they sort of bonded, in the motel and in the car and everything like that, and on this last leg of the trip, that Neil is sort of more aware. His he's not just so focused inwardly. He's actually kind of paying attention to what's going on outside of him, and
Yeah,
sort of taking everything that Dell has told him, and realizing that, like, this guy's not going anywhere. He's just going to be sitting at that train station.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting thing when I read that. I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting.
yeah.
Now, would you also be interested to know that somewhere in the Paramount vaults, whether it's still in working condition or not, is up for debate, but somewhere exists a 3.5 hour cut of this movie.
Oh my goodness.
Apparently, the original screenplay and basically, like what they shot was a 140 something page script for a comedy, and Steve Martin's
Okay,
first reaction was like, "That's kind of long, don't you think?"
that's like Judd Apatow length comedy.
But I think there's also a fair amount of improv stuff that Martin and Candy were doing, and they probably just let the cameras roll. But
Sure.
somewhere there is a very extremely long cut of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I mean, I'd love to see that. Just out of curiosity. Like,
Well,
I would love to see what was there that didn't make it.
so I'd like to point you and our wonderful listening audience to the YouTube and find the trailer for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because many of the scenes in that trailer are not in the final film.
Okay.
So you will see some new stuff in there that you're like, when the hell was that scene?
Man, it seems like they did that so often back in the day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and now they shoot fake stuff for trailers intentionally. So I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of come full circle with trailers.
Yeah. I
before it
like
was
it.
before it was unintentional. Now it's definitely intentional.
Ugh.
All right, so that's the end of our movie. I feel like is there anything else we need to mention? Neil reunites with his family. Dell gets to spend Thanksgiving with him. We don't know what's going to happen to Dell afterwards. There's no kind of epilogue
Well, I
that Neil
was
helps him get back on his feet or anything.
yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Like, did you come up? I came up with a little, not a story, but I came up with like an idea as to what would happen after the film. Did you think about that at all?
I mean, I think that Neil helps Dell get back on his feet. Like, maybe he puts him up in his attic or something for a little while, and kind of builds Dell back up into a functioning individual who can own a home or a apartment somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's more or less what I thought. In that, because Neil works in marketing and John Candy works in sales, which are two very related professions. And I always thought that maybe like Steve Martin was able to kind of find him or help him get a job, a better job, so that he can be a little more stable and kind of, like you said, get an apartment, maybe a home,
Yeah,
something like
not
that,
not
and
live
that
out of
the
that.
two of them would continue to be friends.
Yeah, and not living out of that trunk. It was
Right.
going to be a key element, so that Dale
Right.
can travel a lot lighter on his next business trip.
Yes. Well, I also thought I thought that trunk was actually quite a nice metaphor for all of the baggage that Dell is carrying around.
Oh, I think you're 100% right about that. That's really great insight there. I didn't even think about that initially, but you're right. I think you're dead on about that.
Yeah.
I thought that, yeah, I was thinking that, okay, yeah, you're smarter than me on that one for sure. I just thought it was like where he kept a lot of stuff from his wife that he couldn't get rid of. But yeah, I think you're way more perceptive on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it probably was, but like that's just
But
the
you mean,
thing
I
is
mean,
that
like you
he
said, it's a
can't.
metaphor. I just thought of it
Yeah,
as like the surface issue. You're right.
yeah, and it's just kind of like like when the train breaks down and Neil sees Dell kind of trudging along with the trunk, like dragging the trunk behind him, and he comes over and he helps him. But when he helps him, Neil is still kind of walking behind John Candy at that point.
Yeah, they're at a bit of an angle.
Yeah, but then at the end of the film, he's helping him carry it again, but they're walking side by side, kind of as equals.
God damn, Mark, that's really insightful.
I do my best.
Yeah, you're. God dang, I've watched this movie 1,000 times. I never thought about it in that term, in those terms.
I it's funny. I watched this film for the first time like 2 years ago. I watched this film for like the first time in a very long time, and I was just like, man, it was just like a lot more endearing than I remembered. And it's kind of become, I think also because there's just not that many Thanksgiving movies, but it has become kind of one of my favorite kind of holiday movies for that reason alone. I think there's a very poignant message behind it, and I think that just John Hughes he's just so good
He is,
at doing
was, yeah. Hello.
yeah.
Oh,
I
sorry.
mean, that's all I got for it.
Yeah, no, you're dead right, and I think that's the wonderful part about having like a fresh set of eyes, watching something that they haven't seen super recently. Like I said, I watched this 1,000 times, and it never quite clicked to me like that way. Then as soon as you said it, you're like, I was like, oh yeah, he's 100% right.
Thanks.
No, I mean that's great. Dude, that's why I like doing this podcast with people who maybe have a little bit of a different perspective on it than I do. And again, in my case, as somebody who's watched this a million times, and I just completely missed that. And maybe it's because I've seen it so many times that it just, I just watch it now because it's just, hey, this is what I do.
Right.
So I'm not looking for that stuff. But you catching that was awesome, really good.
Cool.
Thanks for pointing that out to us all.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna get a message from somebody like, we all knew that, Tom. Why didn't you? And I'm like, all right, fine. I'm the dummy here. The MarkCast POPcast will take over next week.
I don't know about that.
All right, so I guess my final question for you, and I feel like you sort of answered it already, but a movie from 1987 not always translates to the modern audience, but does this movie hold up? Do you still recommend it? What do you think?
I still recommend it. I think it definitely holds up. There might be some things where a younger audience is kind of like, what's this or what's that? Like the whole Diners Club thing, or why can't they just use credit cards or whatever. But for the most part, like outside of those things that kind of date it, I think it holds up so long as the audience member is willing to kind of settle into the year 1987 and just go with it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, and yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's I understand that a modern audience would kind of struggle a little bit because there's no cell phones,
Right.
securing flights and transportation is a lot easier nowadays than it used to be.
Yeah.
So as long as you can make that you can go back in time like that and see how us old timers used to have to do things, I think you're gonna have a good time still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on, man. Well, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Steve Martin, John Candy, they're just two of the best.
Yeah. Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah, it's just great seeing them together, and yeah, like I mean I miss them both. Steve Martin retired, but John Candy unfortunately, was cut very short.
Mm-hmm.
and he's no longer around, and yeah, he was just one of my favorites growing up. So
No, I agree with you. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I had a blast talking to you. You taught me a few things. So now when I watch that movie, I'll be like, oh yeah, there it is. That son of a bitch Mark. He got it. And I
all right.
completely missed it. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Mark, I hope you have a great, wonderful, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
And I will talk to you very, very soon.
All right. You too, man.
Bye.
Is there something I can help you with?
What the hell are you driving here?
We had a small fire last night, but we caught it in the nick of time.
You have any idea how fast you were going?
Funnily enough, I was just talking to my friend about that. Our speedometer's melted, and as a result, it's very hard to say with any degree of accuracy exactly how fast we were going.
78 miles an hour.
78, huh? Well, yeah, I could buy that, sure, I guess. You would know better than us, especially since we got a melted speedometer.
Do you feel this vehicle is safe for highway travel?
Yes, I do. Yes, I really do. I believe that. I know it's not pretty to look at, but it'll get you where you want to go.
Now, you got no outside mirror.
No, we lost that.
You have no functioning gauges.
No, not a one. However, the radio still works. Funny as that may seem, with all this mess, that the radio is the only thing that's really working good, and it's clear as a bell. Don't ask me how.
There it is. That's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't double up on too many of the sound clips. There might have been a double sound clip in there. I apologize. Anyways, it was funny. Just deal with it. That's how it goes sometimes. Thank you for listening to this special remix edition of our Planes, Trains, and Automobiles conversation from 2020, when my brother and I sat down to revisit this John Hughes, Steve Martin, John Candy comedy classic. We had a great time checking it out. I think that was evident in the conversation. And I hope you sit down and watch that movie this holiday season with your family, assuming your family is age appropriate for such comedy. Well, on the Thanksgiving tip that we are on, again, I mentioned before, I'm occupado. I'm distracted. I have a moving brain right now where I'm only focused on getting all of my property out of one, residence and into another one, and it is very frustrating and annoying, and I hate it, and it makes me hate my life. But it is a necessity, and it must be taken care of. It must be handled. But in spite of all that, I wanted to make sure I mentioned just how thankful I am this holiday season for every single person that takes the time to download, listen, like, subscribe, and share this show with everybody else that they know in the world, on social media, through however you choose to do it. Carrier pigeon, it's all good. It's jiggy, baby. And I truly, truly appreciate you and your efforts to spread the word about what we're doing here on the TomCast POPCast. My name is Tom. Surprise, surprise. And I want to thank you once again for listening to this quality, independent pop culture podcast. Make sure you're following along on social media at TomCast POPCast, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, tomcastpopcast@gmail.com. And again, thank you again for liking, subscribing, and sharing the show with everyone in your family, friends, inner circle, acquaintances, and random people you've met on the street. I truly, truly appreciate it. And a special shout out to the official members of Poppin' Nation, which you can join at patreon.com/TomCastPopcast. Join the nation, gain access to the sweet bonus content. Thank you to our current Patreons, the Aspen Hill Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff Nail, co-hosting The Ring in Ear, a great podcast, a music podcast. Check them out. Thanks to Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles, the Squid Master General, Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil, Mark Wegemer, our very own Joker and Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pariah Brewing Company right here in San Diego, coming soon to Baltimore, Maryland, the Beer Hop Brigadier General, Jesus Beer Hops, and of course, the silent assassin, he who shall not be named. All right, I hope everyone has a amazing Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Even if you don't celebrate the holiday itself, go have a great weekend. I hope you get the long weekend. Hope you have all 4 days off. Go out there, rock it, crush it, do that thing. If you don't believe in capitalism, don't worry about Black Friday. Just go have fun, be awesome, and remember to be awesome to the people around you and to the people you meet out in the world. That's what it's all about. We gotta spread some love this holiday season. We gotta spread the cheer, and it's up to every single one of us to be nice to ourselves, to our family, to our friends, and to strangers, more importantly than not, okay? Remember that. There's a lot of people going through dark times in the holidays, and sometimes just even a kind word here and there can help them in their struggles, and I feel like that is the least we can do sometimes is offer someone a kind word here and there, and again, maybe help restore a little bit of their faith in humanity. So go have a great holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Again, if you don't celebrate the holiday, I still hope you have a great long weekend. If you're not in the States, have a great time. I thank you all so much for listening. My name is Tom. This is the TomCast POPCast. And remember, ciao, babes.
So the Tribe drops its third straight on this trip, 6-1 to the Rangers. For the Indians, one run on, let's see, one hit. That's all we got. One goddamn hit.
You can't say goddamn on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Great story. Compelling and rich.
We're not gonna be fucking sunk this year! We're the Stanley Cup champions! Yeah!